And good morning. My name is Stephen Werner, and I am a financial representative for Scaringi Financial Services. I'm also a practicing attorney, and we are here today to talk about gifting, and in particular, gifting such that the older generation is able to gift to the younger generations. I want to let you know that today's presentation is nothing more than an educational experience. I'm not here to give any particular financial advice or legal advice. We're just here so that we can think about some concepts and maybe have a discussion about them. First of all, I'd like to consider what is a gift. Now think about gifts that you give to other people, gifts that you give to children and grandchildren. We tend to give toys, we give clothes, we do give money. And the question is a gift is remembered for a short period of time, but think about 10 or 20 years later, will that gift be remembered? And do you want a gift to be remembered? Is the gift something that's perishable? If you give clothes or a gift certificate to a restaurant or something like that, the gift is perishable. It won't be around for a long time. Money can be around for a long time, but a lot of times if you give money outright to children and grandchildren, the money is quickly spent. And there are some pictures of things that we tend to give as gifts: clothes, toys, money, and other kinds of gifts. Most gifts are perishable. But there are gifts that do last a lot longer, and that's kind of what I'd like to talk about today. As we get older, we do think about the stuff that we own and the money that we have, and how we're going to, if we're not going to be able to use it all ourselves, how we're going to give it to the next generation. We become concerned about giving money to the next generation, to our children, to our grandchildren, and so forth. We can give gifts during our lifetime, and we can also give gifts after our lifetime. There are, if we give money, there are taxes that we have to consider. We have to consider, if we just give money to someone, we have to be concerned about the gift taxing implications. Currently in 2019, you are able to gift to an individual up to $15,000 per year per individual without having to worry about any gift tax implications. The person that receives the gift doesn't have to worry about the gift tax, but it's the giver. So if you were going to give a gift of money to any individual, you would have to think about the gift tax implications if you gave that person more than $15,000 in a calendar year. The gift tax and the federal estate tax, however, are unified such that after you pass, there could possibly be an estate tax computation, which brings in all of the gifts that you've given over your lifetime, and your executor would have to file perhaps an estate tax, a federal estate tax return, and pay estate tax depending on the dollar amount. Now, currently, the estate tax has an exclusion. The federal estate tax has an exclusion of $11.4 million. So what that means is over your lifetime, if you've given, and after your lifetime, if you've given $11.4 million or less, then there's no federal estate tax that will be due. However, that number fluctuates very widely depending on the current administration and the makeup of the legislature at the federal level. So a few years ago, the federal state tax exclusion was much lower. Since 2016, that has been raised to where it's now $11.4 million. If administrations change and the pendulum swings, that could go down considerably We just don't know at the present time. Another way to gift money to someone is by, and this is a very common estate planning technique, is to put another person onto a bank account that you own. So you have all of your money in a bank account, and you add a child or a grandchild to that bank account. It's a survivorship bank account, so that when I pass away, that person will inherit that money. That is a gift. So that would also come into play in terms of the gift tax. And depending on when that was given, how far in advance, that could still be clawed back into my estate. I want to make one thing clear. People are concerned about taxes and money and gifting. Gifts are gifts. They're not income. So we can wipe out any concern about income taxes, federal income taxes and state income taxes. Those are income taxes, and gifts are not income. So we don't have to worry about the income taxes, but there are other taxes that we need to be concerned about. In Pennsylvania, if you give a gift of money or any asset to an individual and you survive a year, that gift is not part of my estate when the Pennsylvania inheritance tax return needs to be completed and the tax paid. If I do not survive a year, then that gets clawed back into my estate for inheritance tax purposes. However, that is not the same as the Medicaid clawback. So if you were planning to be concerned about eligibility for Medicaid and in terms of entering an assisted living facility, and Medicaid were to pay some of your the cost of being in that facility, which a lot of people are concerned about. There is the spend down of your own assets before Medicaid will kick in. Medicaid will look back for 5 years. So if you gave any gifts within the last year, for inheritance tax purposes, it's not a problem. But Medicaid will look back 5 years and claw that gift back into your assets to be considered for Medicaid eligibility. The Medicaid rules are complicated, and I don't really want to talk about the Medicaid rules here, but just something to be aware of. A trust is a way to gift money to people. You can create a trust with a trustee. The trustee then manages the trust in accordance with the trust agreement, which you are able to have a hand in drafting. So you're able to control what happens with the money that's placed in the trust. If the trust is revocable, you haven't really given that money away, so it's still part of your estate. If it's an irrevocable trust, you can put the money in the trust. The money, the assets can be managed, and whoever the beneficiary of the trust is can benefit from that later on. And you are able to control to a certain extent what happens with that money, how it's paid out over a period of time to an individual, depending on the trust agreement. Taxes. So we have talked some about taxes. The federal estate tax is paid by the estate. The lifetime exclusion, $11.4 million, is unified with the gift taxes throughout your lifetime. And then there's a computation as to whether or not there's a federal estate tax due. There is a Pennsylvania inheritance tax. The difference is a federal estate tax is paid by the estate. The inheritance tax is paid by the person that inherits. And depending on that relationship to you, the tax rates are different. If it's your spouse, the tax rate is 0. If it's a child or a grandchild, the tax rate is 4.5%. And then they go up from there, 12% and 15%. After a person passes, there is an inheritance tax return that's prepared and filed, and the tax has to be paid within 9 months of a person passing away. If you want to, as you grow older, you can gift cash to people. Now, some of the problems with gifting cash is you gift cash, it can be spent right away. You don't have any control over it. Most times you gift cash and someone suddenly has a bunch of money and they want to go out and they want to buy things with it. If you do gift cash, cash itself doesn't increase in value. So even if someone has cash and they have it as cash, it doesn't increase in value. And then, of course, when the cash is spent, it's gone. So there are ways to do things other than trusts and to give and to just give cash, and these are ways that can make an impact over a person's life, the child or the grandchild, for many, many, many years to come. And it can also be a source of a legacy, a way that child, that grandchild, or even great-grandchild can remember you for many, many, many years to come. It never wears out. It's guaranteed to increase in value. It doesn't become obsolete, and it won't be forgotten. And it doesn't lose value in any economy. And this is a gift of a legacy. And the cash value that you put into this legacy is like a piggy bank that can be accessed, and it increases in value. It can be accessed and it can be used to pay for anything, a trip, a wedding, an education, medical bills, purchase of a home, purchase of an auto, down the road, many, many years. There could be a 10-year-old child that in 20 or 30 years wants to buy a home, and that cash can be there, and it could have grown over that period of time, so that person, that child, you may be long gone, but that will still be there and available for that person to be able to access, to take care of the things that they're wanting to do. So we're going to then talk about what it is exactly. The vehicle that we're talking about is a life insurance policy that is written on a younger person, the child or the grandchild. And so because that person is much younger, the cost of it is a lot cheaper. The younger person, their health is probably very good, and so that keeps the cost of it down. The time from when they're young until they're older is a long period of time, and there is a great amount of time for a lot of buildup, a lot of accumulation. There's a lot of growth that can take place. It also preserves for many, many years, in fact, for their whole lifetime, it preserves insurability. So this person is able to, when they're older and they think, well, I should have life insurance. Well, they already have it, and they got it when they were young, and they got it when it was cheap because you paid for it. And it is possible to dump a lot of cash into a life insurance policy as long as some conditions are met, and to have this be a legacy that lasts a long time. The great thing about a life insurance policy is, although the money that goes in is after-tax money, but you probably already have the money set aside as probably already after-tax anyway. The great thing is all of the buildup inside of those policies is tax-free when it's withdrawn, as long as the policy itself is not surrendered. The cash can be pulled out. And even if that person gets older and passes away, then there is still a life insurance face value payout minus any loans to another beneficiary. So you could have this, benefiting a grandchild, a great-grandchild, and even further down the road. And you've created that legacy, which many, many, many years into the future allows you to be remembered and to be thanked. That's basically the idea of gifting. There are a lot of other implications of different kinds of accounts that can be taken into consideration retirement accounts and things of that nature, investment accounts. But today we're here specifically to talk about an idea for gifting money to the next generation. So at this point, I will entertain any questions that you might have. I do want to stress that it's important that this is just to bring up an idea, to be educational. And if you do have specific questions, set up an appointment with an advisor, set up an appointment with an attorney, and go over these things. And thank you very much.